Can all join palms? Repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. Keeping the palms joined. Put palms down. There's cushions up front if you're just coming in now, and there's a couple chairs also. If there's anyone on a chair or a bench that's comfortable on a cushion, if you can come up and take a cushion, that would be great. It'll open up some chairs. Thank you. All right, good morning.
Good morning.
Nice to see you all. I think there's a bench seat over there. It's funny, there's a cushion up front. Is there anyone else on a chair or bench that's comfortable on a cushion? Jen, are you okay on a cushion or do you need a chair? You're welcome. Can we all say good morning, Jenna, on 3? 1, 2, 3. Good morning, Jenna.
Good morning.
It's funny, most people come here, how are you on a cushion, or do you need a chair? You're okay on a cushion, there's cushions, yeah. You get enlightened quicker on a cushion, just so you know. Yeah. Yes, that too. The funny thing is most people show up here to learn about meditation or Buddhism or something like that. And then I'm going to spend the next 5 minutes explaining how what we just experienced with sitting is the greatest teaching there is. Because we, for the most part, not everybody, but many people actually care where they sit. Really. And even when someone would say, hey, feel free to move. I don't want to move. I'm in my seat. I'm okay on the cushion, but I like my seat. We come in, we go to our seats that we want. We like the sun, and we like away from the sun. We like to be towards the front, or we want to be towards the back. We want to be out a window. We want an aisle seat. You know, it's like an airplane. And so we get our minds so fixated on the things such as the seat. And then we come in together, and I watched, you two still stayed close enough, so that was good, like checking on each other. But then the two that came in together and parted. You know what's seen Strange Brew? It's the most non-Buddhist movie in the world. Have you seen it?
Yes.
Right? Has anyone else seen it? 2 people. Anyone else?
What is it?
It's called Strange Brew.
Who's in it?
Rick Moranis and some other guy.
No.
Maybe. Yeah, like 1982. The worst movie in the world, and I highly recommend. Right? I mean, it's hysterical. I don't even know if I want to get into the plot, but there's a scene. The whole theme is these 2 brothers, Oktoberfest, and they hear that if you get a mouse stuck in a beer bottle, you get free beer. Need I say more? But this scene is, and that's what reminded me of when you two went that way. The scene, these 2 brothers are never apart. And you get an hour into the movie, and all of a sudden, do you remember this scene where they're in the crazy place, and they split them up, And there's this whole scene of these, one guy being dragged this way and one guy being dragged this way. And it's like this pause of this devastation and being crushed because they had to be split up. Right? Now this is not that, but that little thing reminded me of that, of how attached we are to where we sit, to who we sit next to. And this goes on in your life every single day. Every day. There's a cushion here. Are you comfortable on a cushion? Do you need a chair? Chair. Is there anyone on a chair or bench that's okay on a cushion? There's room for one right there. There we go. Thanks. Yeah, yeah, you're definitely okay on a cushion. There's a chair in the front now for anybody who needs. You don't have to sit together. I'm in the middle of that teaching right now, but apparently you are going to anyways. All right. So this is our life every single day. Every little thing we do, we think is so important because our attachments, our craving, and our desire. The Buddha teaches that we suffer. We experience discomfort, angst, dissatisfaction because of our attachments, our cravings, and our desires. And the reason I bring this up is I want you all to really notice how much you are attached and how much you crave and how much you desire just where you sit. Now, maybe this doesn't apply to all of you. Maybe all of you came in and you didn't care where you sat. Maybe when I asked people if anybody wanted to move, you were like, that's no problem. But maybe one or two of you in here was like, nope, this is my seat. I got it. I'm done. Right, Dennis? So you nodded your head right when I said that. Right? You were pretty attached to your seat, right? Yeah. It's right near the sun. I don't want to move. I don't want to give it up. You know, I came early for this seat. You know, so this, again, if you're brand new to Buddhism, this is the heart of Buddhist teachings. The reason we suffer, the first noble truth, is suffering. And the cause of our suffering is our greed, our anger, our ignorance, our craving, our desire, our attachments. That's why we suffer. And what I like to do, and those of you who've known me, you know, at least more than a week, understand this, is I try to take real life experiences and make it clear for us to see how we're suffering in our lives. Because what we just experienced with our seats is going to happen to you all day long today. Who you talk to, where you go, what traffic you're in, how your sandwich was served, how your day goes at work. All these little things that you're going to be stuck with, wrestling in your head, are going to go on all day today. And then you're going to push through and force yourself to get through it. And then at 9 o'clock, you're going to get home and be like, okay, now I got to read that Buddhist stuff so I can calm down. You just had all day to do that calm, peaceful Buddhist stuff. But no, you ignored it until Saturday morning at 11 o'clock. To then show up here and get yelled at by some dude sitting in the front. So I'm telling you, it is everyday life things where we experience. And that's to me, and I'll wrap this up, that's to me the beauty of the Buddhist teachings, is it's not something that just occurred 2,500 years ago in India. It is your life every single day today. And when we can pull these teachings and make them applicable and accessible in our daily life, that's when our life begins to change. Because I promise you, most people show up here, unless they were dragged here by somebody else, most people show up here because something isn't right. They're struggling, they're suffering, they're sad, they're angry, they're depressed, whatever it is. You're dealing with something. And since you're here, let's explore what you're dealing with and why there's such a big struggle in your life. So, now that we cleared that up. So last Saturday, we had the beauty of drilling. And I requested a heavy drilling from 11:10 to 11:30 last Saturday. And this Saturday, well, as you can see, the back is closed off. We're still doing work. I was kind enough to request a 20-minute window of no drilling. And I'm not usually nice. So we're in our window period now where we're not going to have drilling. So we're going to do a meditation practice. Those of you who came expecting more drilling, go wherever you are. Sorry to disappoint you. It's going to be quiet. So meditation practice, a couple things to tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you. You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice, meaning don't ask yourself, is this working or not working? Are you doing it right or wrong? We're just going to sit and breathe. You'll hear sounds inside the room, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos. And this practice is learning to get quiet and still within all of the chaos. Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you're on a cushion, often helps sliding to the front there. Pushing the stomach forward allows the back to straighten. Shoulders are relaxed. Hands are on the knees or lap, whatever's comfortable. If you need to move, simply move. Doesn't make you a bad meditator, just means your leg hurts. Most important, do not expect anything. You're not trying to stop the thoughts or empty the mind. You're not trying to think nothing. We're just going to sit and breathe. I'll guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. And starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Knowing throughout the practice, you'll hear sounds. These are not distractions, not disruptions. Simply what's happening around us as we sit. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Gently guide the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Breathing in, follow breath in. Breathing out, follow breath out. Letting go of expectations. Letting go of judgment from your practice. Just sitting, breathing. Keeping the mind alert. Aware of each sound. Each thought. Each physical sensation. Yet concerned with nothing but sitting, breathing. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle. Know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. And no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. Slowly open the eyes. Slowly beginning to move. Most important, the practice of meditation is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how you sit and hold the hands across the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around you or anything else for that matter. It's everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samutpata, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being, no different than any one of us in this room. He began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. And what that means, very simply, for all of us in this room, regardless of where you come from, what you believe in, where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens. More reactions. That's it. That's your entire life. This practice is learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to everything else that's happening throughout your day. And so all we're working on is closing the gap to the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. This practice is not easy. It's not necessarily fun. It's not an escape, as often people think it is. If your life is a crazy, hectic, stressed out mess, meditation doesn't fix that. It helps you create space so you can become aware of why your life is a crazy, hectic, stressed out mess. And then you can make changes. This practice is direct perception into the present moment. And the present moment is very often filled with challenges, difficulties, conflict, struggles. And most people spend their entire life running from everything. This is learning to be with life as it arises. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's just sitting, breathing, becoming aware of what you think, what you say, and what you do every moment of your life. Like literally understanding why you're doing what you're doing. Not going through your whole day and then at nighttime sitting down with your journal and writing about all the stuff you did. I mean, nothing wrong with that for those who do that. But that doesn't help you understand things. The practice of understanding karma which is what you generate all day long. It's not what you get, it's what you give. With body, speech, mind, thought, words, and actions. This practice is understanding why we do what we do. And you have all day long to pay attention to that. And that's why for me, I go back to highlighting the simple example of the seats. Because if we can begin to understand why those things are so important to us, then we can begin to cut through some of that attachment and craving. But it takes time. We have been craving and desiring and attaching to people and places and things our entire life. And it's going to take longer than 6 months to do away with that. Those of you who've been at this for 20 years, you know. It takes longer than 20 years, too. I hate to break it to you. I hope you're patient. It takes a while. But slowly, every day, we begin to chip away at some of that craving and desire and attachment and pride and ego, all those things that cause so much struggle in our lives. So with that, I'll pause. For me, I really just prefer to respond to questions. Meditation, Buddhist practice, anything that's on your mind. And we use the rest of our brief time this morning to open up to questions. Those who are joining virtually, welcome. I guess you got any seat you wanted. There's a chat box on your screen somewhere, so feel free, as you have been, to say hello. If you have any questions, put them there. I'll do my best to respond. So we'll open up to questions.
When you were talking about our desires, where we wanted to sit, I don't understand, or I'm not making the connection where it becomes suffering. I don't get it.
So the question was, for those virtual or maybe didn't hear it when I was talking about the desire of where we wanted to sit, the question was, if I heard you correctly, was that you don't understand how that was suffering, right? Correct. The desire to sit somewhere wasn't suffering. But what happened when I asked you to move? You got it. He said, I got it. I got it. But it's a great question. And in all seriousness, to add to that a little bit, it's important to kind of distinguish that we are going to have desires our entire life, right? The Buddha talked about healthy desires, unhealthy desires. So if we didn't have the desire to end suffering, to suffer less, to be kinder, gentler, happier people, none of us would do this stuff. So there are healthy desires and healthy cravings. It's important for us to distinguish the difference between the two, the intention behind them, and also to clarify, like I said, the desire to come in and sit where you want, that thought and action isn't so much suffering in itself. But the two things that come to play, one, like I already said, is that, okay, but then what if I ask people to move? What is highlighted there in that question is the attachment. Because we chose to do something. Well, I sat here. Now I'm attached to it. I put my intention into this being mine. This is my seat. Really? Is it yours, or is the person who was sitting in it and now hang on before you try to argue? I've known some of you way too long. Hang on. Go ahead.
I was actually going to just underscore what you're saying, because I got here early thinking I would get my usual seat.
Oh! Can you say that louder for those who didn't hear you in the back?
So you're suffering.
I got here early thinking I would get my usual seat. And
meaning someone over here is in your usual seat?
So I had to try sitting on the right side.
Okay. And before I mess with the left side, how did you feel when you came in and someone was in your seat?
It took me a second.
Took you a second?
Yeah.
Who's in your seat?
Well.
Are we in a courtroom? Do we either?
He knows.
Did you not realize this was Amy's seat? I mean, her name's on it. There's a plaque right there. Right? And then so then you had to come over here and sit over here.
Yeah, and it was nice on the sunny side.
Nice on the sunny side. So then we tried to spin it and say, okay, I can be okay over here.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm sorry, I thought you were gonna come back with like a but that's funny, right?
Yeah, I was with you on that.
Yeah. It's funny, and also, I don't know if sad's the right word, but it's scary. It's scary that we are so attached to these little things. And then people want to ask, like, how do I deal with the loss of a loved one? How do I deal with an animal that is sick and soon to pass that I love? How do I deal with major life changes? The funny thing is, and this isn't the funny thing, that's what leads most people to this practice. You're never going to be able to be okay with those things as long as you're still attached to what side of the room you're sitting on. That's why you start there. You start with simple things. You start with just ordering food and letting it come out exactly how it is and just try eating it. You start with going to Starbucks and not telling them how many pumps of caramel you want in your frappy, latte, whatever. Just order a coffee. Would that be so difficult? Why, yes, it would. It's my money. I want my coffee. I have a right to it. I have a right to my seat. I have a right to everything. And what does this all boil down to? The one thing that we are most attached to that causes all of our suffering? Ourselves. Because we tend to think we are the center of the universe. Not any of you here, but everybody out there. Right. And from that place, that sense of self, that sense of I, me, and mine, this is where duality comes into play. Again, the heart of Buddhist teachings. So we suffer. Yeah.
A long time ago, when now they're a little older, but my two grandkids, when they first went to preschool, when the first one was born, we went to see how it, and one of the first words they learned how to say was, mine. And we went to see when the second one was there. We didn't say anything, and they came back pretty quick when they started getting in preschool. Mine. All the kids learn that almost right away, and it grows from there.
Gross. And that's why I always say, like, we're stuck. We're just these big preschoolers who've been saying mine our entire lives. So for me, when I say things like how attached we are to our seats, or I tease Amy or Dennis or whatever, these are not, again, for those who might be new to Buddhism, these are not judgments that say, oh, you're a bad Buddhist because you like your seat. These are opportunities to become aware of that, yes, but from birth, we have been taught and conditioned to crave and desire and make it our own. And now this practice is saying, yo, wait a minute. What about others? That's really difficult for us. Because if we can see that every single person in this room is equally as important as you are, can't they have a seat too? Go ahead and then here. Yeah, go ahead, Dave. Yeah.
So real quick on the seats. So my seat was taken this morning.
Your seat.
But
It's good to know everybody has their seats. I wasn't aware of this. Actually, I am aware of it. I know
Your
pretty much
seat
where everyone sits. My seat. Funny, this one's available.
But I was okay. I was like, fine, there's other sunny seats, and no problem. Like I was like, that's okay. But then when you asked if anyone could move seats, I thought about it, but my lower back is really hurting today. So I was like, well, am I suffering? Is my suffering worse than someone else? Should I get up? Would it really hurt if I sat there? So that's where I had.
Yeah.
You're talking about the seats. I'm like, I was fine with like oh, good, someone else is experiencing my seat, no problem, my seat, right? But the other part is where I kind of tripped up. I'm like, so this is suffering, but
Sure.
does my suffering work
Sure.
for someone else, and how much am I suffering? I don't know how much someone else is suffering, and I go on.
And the point of this practice isn't to make us crazy about it, but you bring up really a very transferable and practical, realistical example of this isn't about often kind of the expression of, Buddhists aren't doormats. They're not just, hey, continue to punch me, I'm Buddhist, that's okay. No, there's an awareness of, hey, if I have physical pain, I have back problems, whatever it might be, I have to take care of me also. So it's an interesting thing to be aware of, but the teaching isn't like to force yourself to be in more pain just for somebody else necessarily. It's an awareness of where you are in that. Yeah.
So Bob and Doug McKenzie,
Yeah.
Dave Thomas.
Thank you.
That's the way my mind rolls. I spent the first 5 minutes of meditation ruminating who played this character, and with that comes a lot of trauma.
Yeah.
I remember things vividly, and I'm on this spiritual path right now, and I'm at forgiveness right now. And I'm working with a sponsor. I do Eightfold. I'm in the recovery community as well. And I was just wondering if you could give some advice as far as forgiveness for self and for others.
Yeah, so the question really started with clarifying. And the funny thing is, not to kind of like compare things here, but until you said the names, it took a second. Like I had completely forgotten that I even brought that movie up. Right? But thank you for clarifying the names because I would have wondered or I would have Googled it at some point in time. What was the dog's name?
I don't remember.
Something else to think about. But your example was that you spent 5 minutes trying to think about it, and that's just fun and games because they're just movie characters. But your question really is about with trauma. We also tell those stories for longer than 5 minutes. It becomes 50 years before we blink, right? And as you shared, someone in recovery, part of the spiritual journey is to what you're working on right now is forgiveness. And my guess from what you said is that you're talking about having forgiveness towards potentially one, yourself, that's always there, but also potentially maybe other people that have caused harm that were part of the trauma you're experiencing. Is that fair enough to say? Yeah. So the question is, how do we forgive? Anyone here have a problem with forgiveness? Only 5 people here. Bunch of liars. What my master always said, first and foremost, with forgiveness, and this is important to understand that before I say it, forgiveness doesn't mean what they did was right. It doesn't mean what they did was okay. It doesn't mean what they did was healthy or any of that stuff. Very often when we want to try to forgive someone, who's it really for? Ourselves. Because whoever harmed us yesterday or 30 years ago, they're probably still not suffering because of it. I mean, potentially they are. Hang on. Right? It's for us. Yeah. So that's first. But what my master always said was, hey, Jeff, have you ever harmed somebody? Yes. Pretty bad? Yes. Often? Yes. I too have the ability and have quite a bit caused a lot of pain and suffering in people's lives. And this isn't about weighing, well, this action is worse than this action, because our mind can quickly go there, right? But that doesn't do you any good. Then you're just comparing harms. The point I'm making is that if you can recognize that you have the ability and have harmed people in the past, so does everybody else. And what we need and want when we harm someone is forgiveness for ourselves and from others. So your forgiveness starts with understanding that they're just human. They did things that were terrible, potentially. And very often, that it's a cycle that perpetuates generation after generation after generation. or experience after experience after experience, right? I spent the last 20 years working in prisons. I've worked with victims of physical, sexual, emotional abuse, those who've been raped. I've worked with people who've murdered. I've worked with, you name it, for the last 20, 25 years. Some heavy stuff, right? Why do we hurt people? Because we're hurting. So were they. Doesn't excuse it, doesn't make it right, doesn't make it good. But they were suffering deeply. And very often there's a strong correlation to the amount of, the depth of the occurrence and the magnitude of the act very often is tied to the depth of their suffering. Does that make sense? Yeah. So, you know, if I'm just walking around and, you know, step on a rock, I'm probably not going to go murder somebody for that. But if I've been beaten and abused and traumatized for 40 years, then chances get much greater.
Why?
Does that make sense?
Why?
I'm sorry? Why what?
Why do we, if we're suffering, we want others to suffer?
What's your question? Say that again.
Sure.
No, you're good. No, I didn't quite hear you. Did you say if we're suffering, why do we want others to suffer?
Yeah.
I don't know. Hang on, let me come back to that. There was a hand in the back. Well, let me finish here. That's just a start. Yeah.
When I was in meditation, I was listening to birds, and the birds are suffering from the attribute of their feelings that they're not being heard. So when they're singing their little songs, they're saying their problems, their questions, and their queries, and they're not being addressed. So everybody is thinking about all the things that they're thinking about that are important. So what I came to conclude is that the question itself is the suffering itself, because the stillness is the awareness of our equine nature. Buddha said that forgiveness is remembering our past papas upon ourselves over and over again until we are nothing more than sand on the seas of the ocean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. The question of why? When we hurt, why do we hurt people? Greed, anger, ignorance. The root cause of all of our suffering. We are angry. And so we look for someone or somewhere to express that anger. And usually it's at other people. And often at ourselves. But the anger that we carry in our hearts and our minds looks for some way to express itself. So we overcome anger with the practice of compassion. So ultimately understanding, I mean, I get your question, and it's a great point, but for me as a practitioner, I'm not trying to understand why is my anger coming out to harm others. I'm trying to understand what is at the root of my anger and how can I decrease my anger. Because if I do that, if I decrease my anger, then that takes care of the problem, right?
Yeah.
That's to me really what, it's going to the root of what's going on. And again, Buddha's teachings, we overcome anger with compassion. And very often it starts with compassion towards the self. Yeah.
So you said about suffering. I'm also in recovery. So I've struggled with it for a lot of years. So, and I also hold a lot of resentments towards myself and family. So one thing that I'm learning, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the people that have hurt me also, and there's been quite a few, myself also. But he says something about karma. It's not what you receive, it's what you put out. So if I'm being hostile, if I'm being vengeful, I'm putting that out, it is gonna come back to me.
Not necessarily. Well, continue, sorry, go ahead.
So, if I start being, I guess, more compassionate towards myself, towards others, then I'll be, what's the word I'm looking at? I'll find inner peace. And that's what I'm trying to work on.
Yes, yes. So let me, not to shatter your beautiful view, but let me shatter it for a minute.
Yeah.
Because what you're talking about is beautiful and great. What you're in essence saying is that if you put about a bunch of anger and vengeance into the world, then that's going to come back to you and create more turmoil and not help you find peace. But if you put out love and compassion into the world, then that's going to come back to you and you're going to be more peaceful. That's kind of your view from what I heard.
I know, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not suggesting with what I'm saying that you should stop putting love and compassion in the world. But what I'm suggesting is you could come up and give me a hug, right? Maybe I'll punch you back.
Yeah. Maybe
I'll hug you back. You don't know. But you should still, I mean, you don't have to literally give me a hug. Do you understand my point?
Yeah.
When I say that, again, to clarify for anyone who's never heard what karma actually is, because very often in our Western culture, we think karma is what goes around comes around. And I kind of brushed over it because I wasn't talking about it at the moment. But karma is not do good and get good. Karma is not do bad and get bad. You ever done good things and had bad things happen to you? You ever done bad things and you're like, oh my God, I still want to lie. Right? So karma is not what we get. The word karma literally means action. And as taught by the Buddha, we generate action 3 ways: body, speech, mind. So karma is what we give. It's what we bring into the world. It's not what we receive. Again, that's a very kind of self-serving view of like, what do I get? You ever play pool? The cue ball goes into the rack. That cue ball hits the rack every single time the ball is going to a different direction. Our entire lives, we are that cue ball. Now, I do agree that if we go into the world hugging people and doing kind things and putting out love and positivity, there's a better chance of good things happening around us. But it's not so cut and dry that way, because we've created a lot of unhealthy karma in our past. We've done a lot of past things, thoughts, words, and actions that were not so great, right? And that created a lot of kind of ripple effect. So I could have, a couple little beautiful karmic flower pots over here. All wonderful karma, nothing but kind thoughts, words, and actions. And there's 4 cute little plants. And I got 8 redwoods over here of not good stuff I've done. That karma will play out. And when those redwoods come crashing down on me, I'm going to be challenged to either water the redwood or keep watering the cute little beautiful karmic seeds over here. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't want to crush the beauty of you doing nothing but good things. Just warn you that just because you do nothing but good things doesn't always mean everything that comes back is going to be good. And be prepared when stuff comes back and it's not. Because if you're blindsided by that, you're like, wait a minute, I've been doing all this good stuff. How come something bad's happening to me? Screw this, I'm done doing kind stuff. That'll happen. You ever done good things and it wasn't received well and then you have resentment towards them? Yeah, so the Bodhisattva teaching around generosity, around giving, is to give without any attachment to the gift. Meaning to give kindness and compassion without expecting anything in return. No gift, no giver, no receiver. No attachment to anything that comes back one way or the other. But too often we give good things, our heart, our smile, our attention, whatever it is, and it's not received well. So we're like, well, I'm done with that. Not the practice. Yeah.
So you're saying there's the pot of flowers and then the redwoods. But is the goal to have the pots of flowers become bigger than the redwoods that should then come back to us?
I'm just watering the pots.
Watering those,
There is no goal.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So they're it's
Yeah.
just because when you think
But
about
I
it,
get
you're
it.
thinking okay, well, what if I did only do good things?
Understood.
Is that coming back to me?
Understood. Right. So what was the last thing you said? is that,
Coming back to me.
so who are you making this about?
Me.
You.
That's
And we've
all
already
this,
clarified
right?
that we are the center of the universe, so, but it's a great, and I'll close with this thought, I think. It's important to understand with Buddhist practice, I always discourage people from setting goals. Because this practice is about moment to moment action. What I think, what I say, and what I do now. So I understand in theory, like, yeah, I just want to, water the little flower pots and do good stuff and have a good life and all that kind of, and that's wonderful. But what will happen is if you set this goal of when are these beautiful, nice little flower pots going to become the redwoods, what if they don't? Then you're disappointed. So the practice is to just water. Yeah. Letting go of the attachment or expectation of getting anything from it.
Yeah.
Anything else before we close? We're gonna say something, or I couldn't talk? No, okay.
Good discussion.
Good discussion, all right. Anything else? Oh, thank you, Bridget. Bridget named the dog for us. Now I know Bridget, so I'm gonna guess she didn't even Google it, and she knew it. Hosehead.
Jeff, what's the dog name?
Hosehead. Hosehead. Yeah. I love the fact that Normal can think this is a good discussion, and we've touched on Strange Brew. Which again, for the record, is the best movie you will ever see. And I really do hope you watch it and report back. If you want to just absolutely waste an hour and a half of your life that you will never get back. Strange Brew. So we're gonna join. We're gonna join palms. Well, she can put a dog emoji with a cape on it. And the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to those who need it most. May they all be at peace. May we all be at peace and free from suffering. So a few quick announcements before you all head out to fight to get your shoes. Thanks all for being here. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma bum. We opened up this place 17 years ago, downtown for 10, here for the last 6 or so, to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those of us who lead, we're not monks, we're not nuns, we're not gurus, we're not masters, we're not teachers, we're not looking for students. We're just practitioners. So we do our best to take our understanding of Buddhist teachings and put it into terms that hopefully make sense to those who show up. Every night we have different practices going on, different people leading from a different Buddhist tradition. We have a large recovery sangha, so anyone battling addiction, drugs, alcohol, whatever it might be. A number of those classes. We have a family group as well. So always something happening. I don't think we have anything out of the ordinary. Some people have asked recently, we will be starting, I'll send out the announcement soon, but our second cohort for the Engaged Buddhist Training Program. There are a few of the former enlightened disciples from that program in the room. Yes, elevated your ego, I know. So that'll start probably end of May. So that announcement will come out soon. It's an 8-week program where you're stuck with the same group of people, about 20 for 8 weeks. It meets once a week, and it's really kind of a cool thing. So that'll come out, like I said, in the next probably week, that'll be announced. Other than that, the noise that's been going on the last 2 weeks. So, remember how freezing everybody was during this winter storm we had in San Diego? And the joke I would always make about we just turned the heat on and it should kick in any moment. I won't be able to joke about that anymore because we'll actually have heat. And pretty soon when you all start complaining about how hot it is, because it goes back and forth on the complaint spectrum, we're also gonna have air. So we just found out, we weren't sure on the year, but the units we've had up there that we just really didn't use because we didn't want to blow up the building, they were 28 years old. And last I checked, HVAC units that are 28 years old probably shouldn't be used. So that's what's been going on. So appreciate you dealing with some of the noise and things like that. So thank you all for making it possible. So yes, question.
4 hours sit next Saturday?
Yeah, thank you. Next Saturday is a day of silence. The first Saturday of every month, we do a half day of silence. So it's 8 to noon. It's not 4 hours sitting straight. It's about a 25-minute meditation that breaks for 5 minutes, and that just repeats from 8 to noon. There's a cleaning meditation. There's a walking outside meditation. So you're welcome to join that and show up. If 20 minutes of silence is torture, then I strongly recommend 4 hours. So always something happening. Buddha for You is open downstairs. If you need anything, please just watch your step going out. So thanks all. Oh, and if you want to stick around and help garden outside or anything, I know the usual crew will be out there, so we can always use some weed pulling and things like that. So thanks all.